Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be reacting to another video from a content creator named Eric Bugenhagen, and I had this video sent to me by a client of mine, so I've already watched the video through. I'm going to be going over it here and giving my thoughts, and I think kind of the general point or topic of discussion for this video is going to be training enjoyment versus what you deem to be optimal or science-based. So this is going to be Eric reacting to a Renaissance periodization video with Alex Leonidas, and I'm going to be kind of interjecting and giving my thoughts throughout. So let's do it. Let's get into it.
All right, here we go. I finally figured out how to get this going so that you can actually hear the audio while I'm going over it. I'm going to be watching it in 2x speed since that's usually what I listen to videos on. And if you need to rewatch it, you can always go on YouTube and watch it more slowed down. So here we go.
Okay, here we go. Come on. This ain't freaking Alpha Destiny hitting a push-up with all his might. Okay? Now, I'm thinking to myself, holy buckets, this could be interesting. Now, listen, the video is 15 minutes long. I'm not going to go through the whole video here. And frankly, okay, I don't want to be copy-struck or whatever the frick it's called. Hence why I have this particular setup. You can't tell me that I'm, freaking using your, footage unfairly. This is some fair freaking use here, boys. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give my thoughts. Now, first and foremost, major...
So I haven't actually watched that many Eric Bugenhagen videos, but my first kind of initial response or reaction to seeing this intro is that he's a funny guy.
Respect to both these individuals. Alpha Destiny, I guess he goes by Alex Leonidas now. He took a lot of people's feedback to change the name Alpha Destiny. A tad bit childish at the times, but of course he was very young, I think, when he started it. And his mind, he wanted to be a freaking alpha male. You know what I'm saying? And the word alpha was kind of like new and cool and trendy, like, I feel like in 2010 or something or other. Maybe that's when he started his channel. I'm not quite sure. But he's built his channel up well. I know he's done a lot of times to get West shit. I'm sorry, boys. Okay, now we're going to... Terrible. Okay, here we go. We're right freaking back to it. We're taking our full cylinders. Okay. So I'm thinking this guy, he was big into bands, big into chains, big into partial movements and all that kind of stuff. Haven't kept up too much on how he's training now. And I've seen some stuff from Dr. Mike. Okay, Dr. Mike, I haven't watched too much of his stuff either. I just saw...
So it seems to me that Alex has changed a lot of his training over the past couple of years. It seems like in the past kind of year or two, he's really transitioned to fully committing to bodybuilding style training from some of that. I know he still kind of runs a conjugate system for his bodybuilding purposes, but also for those who don't know, conjugate is not something that I'm super clear on, or like I'm definitely like an expert or well read. It's more kind of used in the strength training realm, but from what I understand, it is a lot of high intensity work where you swap out different variations week to week. So you might do like a flat barbell, then you might do like a tempo barbell, then you can add bands or chains as variations of those. So you can kind of maintain intensity without having too much staleness or repeatingness of movements. And I guess the idea of that is that you can kind of come back to those rotations every couple of weeks and continuously make progress in CPRs. So he's done that for a long time with his work, Alex Leonidas. And then recently, I think in the last year or two, he's really started adopting some of the kind of Jordan Peters style of training, which is lower volume, really high intensity. And that's kind of what I've observed. So not sure if Eric has kind of followed that along, but that's kind of what I've seen from Alex over the past couple of years. And then talking about concepts that he's going to mention in a little bit from RP, like stimulus to fatigue ratio. And what does that mean?
One video that was highly recommended because of the freaking, trendy Sam Sulek is, and he was critiquing his form. And, he's going horsing heavy hammer strength rows. And, of course, Dr. Mike here's like, well, ideally you want to have a squeeze and a stretch. A squeeze and slow down the eccentric for a stretch. And it's like, listen, Dr. Mike, obviously this guy's highly successful. I know tons of people that are doing like his app or whatever. I know he's got an app or something. I know a lot of people personally that use it, okay? In WWE that use it. So kudos to it. Much respect. So this is just my thoughts. I'm not being negative or anything. I'm just giving my thoughts. I haven't really watched this. I kind of scrolled through and just said to myself, hey, people want me to kind of give my 2 cents? Let's freaking do it, okay? So I don't know what to expect with this. So, come on. I'll just kind of do it this way.
I'm feeling great, Mike. Happy to be here.
Feeling great, Mike. Great.
And lastly, if you have really good technique, just put your pecs in a real safe position. Shoulders in a real safe position. Nice and retracted chest out.
I mean, there's not too much to say here. I do find that he's got a pretty big arch in his back, which is not a big, I think that's how you bench for horsepower, to move big weights, but his whole thing is about, like, optimal joint angles and things of that sort. So I'm just curious why Dr. Mike, for instance, wouldn't recommend, being a bit more, like, you would get a bigger range of motion if you weren't like this, Like, this is, look at your elbow angle, you know what I'm saying? Here, because you're in this bench, and I know you're using your back, you're using your lats,
That's a good point. I feel like the purpose of getting that arch is not necessarily to decrease the range of motion or to increase the amount of weight that you can lift. The purpose why Dr. Mike likes to do that is because you feel a really kind of deep stretch in your pecs when you have that kind of big arch and you're pushing your chest towards the ceiling and using that cue, as opposed to keeping your chest kind of, or I should say, your torso kind of more on the bench and letting the weight come down to you. If you kind of reach your chest up to meet the bar, generally you feel more of a stretch in your pecs, which I'm assuming is why Mike does it. So that's kind of my thought on that.
And you're just optimal range for strength, like look at here versus if I was flat, it's a pretty big difference in terms of range of motion. maybe I should listen to him talk. I'm just giving my 2 cents.
Your stimulus to fatigue ratio of the barbell bench press can be incredible if you use this technique.
Just nerd lingo.
That should be going toward the ceiling also.
Stimulus to fatigue ratio is nerd language. I mean, it kind of is, but to an extent, it's also something that a lot of successful lifters use in their training. I'm not saying that everyone needs to really hyper focus on it, especially if you're more towards a beginner. You probably don't need to worry unnecessarily about stimulus to fatigue ratios as much, which Dr. Mike, to his credit, has said before. He said you probably want to focus on mainly just kind of that raw stimulus magnitude, those biggest movements that are going to get you a lot of tension through your muscles, and not necessarily worrying about the amount of fatigue that an exercise is going to cause you, because you're probably not lifting that much weight to begin with. But I think it definitely has application for more advanced lifters.
Analysis causing paralysis by analysis. That's the first thing I'm getting. Boy, oh boy, we're really overthinking. Like Alex, for instance, obviously on his channel has been benching forever, right? I think, he did a powerlifting thing. He had some state record or something. I don't know. Clearly the guy knows how to bench press. So the fact that we're coaching him to bench press 1 plate already, this is, I think, kind of the problem with YouTube in general. It's like people are so starved for content that we're analyzing literally every freaking detail. Like, okay, we're going to put 1 plate on, and now we want to get disengaged, and you don't want to just go down. You want to go at an arc, and when you press up, you want to press, you know what I'm saying? So now people, like real beginners and noobs and stuff like that, are benching, they're freaking boggled. You know what I'm saying? Back in the days, press it, okay, just press, touch the chest, press up. And then as you get a little more advanced, like, maybe if I engage my back, and I'm going up and down. And you kind of you just lift weights, I feel like we're turning weights into rocket science.
Okay, there's a couple of points here that I want to address. The first is that Eric makes the point of, okay, why are we coaching Alex through something that he's done a million times? I think really the purpose of Jared doing this with Alex is not necessarily for Alex per se. Alex probably knows a lot of this. It's more so for education for the viewers who are watching. And to Eric's point, he's saying, well, a lot of these people who watch YouTube fitness are beginners and noobs, so they shouldn't really need to be focused on all this kind of hyper technical thing. They're going to be in their head a ton, and when they're in their head, they're probably not going to be pushing things as hard. That's another kind of point that he makes later on that he doesn't make here, but he's saying, people are going to get this paralysis by analysis, which I think is a fair point. I think there are certain individuals who are more likely to be drawn towards RP's style of content, the science-based lifting, who might tend to overthink things and under-apply things. And that's not something that I can really get behind. However, I think that there is a place for considering some of these concepts, especially if you're more advanced, or especially if you've been trying a lot of things and you haven't been seeing progress. So I think that for certain individuals, yes, this is probably going to be a little bit more than they really need to think about things, but not always. Sometimes it's helpful to consider these things if you've been stalled out or you haven't been seeing progress, and you're kind of just going very maybe you're giving a lot of effort in the gym, you're kind of going balls to the walls, but your technique is sloppy and you're not actually kind of just throwing weight around, which is something that Eric mentions a couple times in the video as a style that he likes to train, and he's clearly gotten good results from it. But I think that it works for people who it works for, but if it doesn't work for you, then maybe some of the more kind of RP style of training will work better. And I think more importantly, another point that I'm going to make later is the longevity of training is a reason why I believe that Mike and Jared train this way.
And even as you press up, even more of the texture of the ceiling. Okay, so, that's like a soft touch. So I'm not holding it, I'm not resting it. I'm
right, soft. What are we talking about?
Like I said, it's going to make it feel way fucking heavy. It's got to be perfect.
Technique over ego. I think the whole point of this channel here is anti-ego lifting. 1, 2, 3, pause.
Yes, sir.
2, chest, 3, pause. Okay, this basically just doing tempo. You know what I'm saying? Charles Poliquin coined tempo training. Okay, it's used, that's just cookie cutters cover, right? 3 second negative, pause, explode, X, explode up. I've done the tempo training as well when I first discovered it, from Charles Poliquin 15 years ago or whatever. And it's oh my god, it makes so much sense to slow, because you get more stimulus and you have to use less weight, and it's going to be safer on the joints and the pause and the explosion. Sure. But when I was doing that, boys, I was freaking weak, okay? I was weak, all right? Why? Now, you know what made me, I was weak at that point. You know what made me strong was a powerlifting coach, basically, just kind of teaching me how to squat, bench, deadlift, whatever, and just shooting for bigger numbers, right? Obviously, again, there's somewhere in the middle. It's not black, it's not white. Should you always train like this? Personally, I think you're going to not enjoy training this much. I think you have to have a relative sense of control the weight, but at the same time, if you're literally counting your reps, right, it just feels so freaking boring. I think you have to horse big loads, okay? Obviously, don't bounce them off your chest, but, unrack it, control it down, explode, control it down, explode. Leave the freaking tempos and the paralysis by analysis, with the 1 freaking plate on, right? It's just liquid, just have fun. Consistency is what's going to lead to the biggest gains. Now, if you do this every training session, right, this tempo versus, okay, maybe today I'm not going to do 3 seconds down, 1 second pause, right, with this form. Maybe I'm just going to unrack it and just blast up as many reps I can get as possible, or see how heavy I can get today, okay? As opposed to, well, I got to do my tempo training. What do you think the difference is going to be in terms of progression, right? I would say they're pretty freaking even Siemens. Now, who's going to want to do this training versus, okay, today I'm going to challenge myself to do 225 for as many reps as I can do, or I'm going to try to get 5 more pounds on the bench today. That sounds exhilarating. That sounds fun. That sounds like I can keep, staying hungry and motivated to get to the gym. Whereas this just sounds like a chore, right? This is a chore. This is what you do when you're in the college weight room, and you're like, all right, what's next, coach? I'm like, okay, I want
Okay, so I think the general point that he's trying to make here is that if you are not training in a style that you enjoy, you're not going to be able to stick to it. And consistency is really what's going to get you the results in the long run. Like, even if you do kind of this more optimized style of training that Dr. Mike is promoting, if you were to go in the gym and kind of do whatever, then not do whatever, but you were to maybe control the weight, but not be as hyper focused on technique, as long as you're staying safe, you're probably going to get pretty similar results. And I would agree with this for the most part. However, I think that there are people who probably can benefit more from the Dr. Mike Jared style of training if they're able to enjoy that. And I think it comes down to, what do you enjoy doing in the gym? Do you enjoy doing things that are fun, like just kind of just throwing weight around, or do you enjoy more the aspect of trying to perfect and get every kind of 1%? Because I know there are a lot of people who enjoy trying to quote unquote optimize everything. Now, there are some people who hyper focus on trying to quote unquote optimize everything, and that actually hurts their results in the long run and hurts their enjoyment. But there are some people who that really, makes training fun for them. So I know for Eric, that isn't something that makes training fun, focusing on the tempo and the slow and the pause. For myself, I actually do enjoy training that kind of way, and I don't really care about horsing big weight around, as he would say. So I think it's kind of, whatever floats your boat in the gym. And I think he does make a good point. Like, you have to find a style of training that you enjoy, and you're probably going to get pretty similar results both ways, as long as you're using good enough form in the style of training that he's recommending. Otherwise, I think you can run into some issues with like joint and tendon pain and just longevity with lifting. But he's still saying that you should use good technique. So I think he's just saying, like, you don't need to hyper optimize everything for technique. And I think to an extent, he has a fair point.
Step 5 with a 3-second negative, it's like you're just putting the work in, which is great. Like, yes, obviously it works too. But my point is, though, is like, I feel like this Renaissance periodization, like, is really becoming a go-to authority, which is great because obviously Dr. Mike's teaching great stuff. But my point is, like, I feel like a lot of people are going to start to be held back because they're going to be so freaking hyper-focused on the technique, the breathing, the eccentric and all that, that, like, again, they're holding themselves back. Fellas, and I'm only speaking from experience. That I did this with the Charles Polkman training 15 years ago, and it was like, oh, yeah, tempo.
Yeah, I think, like he's saying, the key point here is that he says that you're holding yourself back. So I think if you're going to train in this way, kind of the RP style, you still need to apply a great degree of effort in your training. And I think that that's sometimes a critique that people have, is like, okay, if you're going to train this really kind of like slow tempo, really kind of super attention to detail with your technique, you still need to train hard. Like, that's nothing that you can escape with training. So I think that that's often a critique people have. It's like, oh, well, then they're, leaving reps in the reserve, and they're leaving a bunch of reps on the table, and they're not trying hard because they're trying to cheat their way out of hard work. And I'm like, sometimes maybe that could be the case for people who are like, I'm kind of new to the gym, and they're very like analytical and scientific, and maybe they're not used to pushing themselves. Maybe that's true, but there are a lot of people who just want to get better results. And so this is kind of a way for them to try to get better results. Eric has a point here, though. I think effort is going to be one of them. Effort and consistency. That's kind of something that he's preaching here, which is a message that I think as well. I just also enjoy kind of focusing on those little 1%ers, the optimizing the technique. I enjoy lifting that way.
But I'm like, man, hardly using any weight. I mean, I don't think your CNS, like, yeah, your stimulus, or your freaking, optimal joint angle, muscular fatigue with this, but like, I don't think your CNS is getting any stronger. Right? There's something about just horse cocking big weights. Check this video out. I can only lift the 40 from here to here, but I can lift the 80 from here.
There's something about it in terms of an enjoyment perspective for some people, but personally, that's not a big thing for me. And that's something that he'll kind of mention later. I don't really care about like throwing around a bunch of weight at the gym. I'm in it for big muscles. I don't care how much I lift. So that's kind of my take on that.
Here, shouldn't I get the 80s, cheat a little bit to get to the mid range? You think so? Not reps. No, I'm put it down. Say we lift the 80 from here to here. Yes, that can be the same amount of internal muscular force as the 40 from here to here. But the only reason the 80 is liftable from here to here is just the leverage advantage. Your muscles are pulling just as hard at stretch position. The internal force generated per fiber is ultra high with the 40 from here to here, just as high as the 80 from here to here. Here's the real kicker. Muscles seem to grow even better when they produce maximum internal per fiber force at a sculpt. The shot, much less tension. It all makes sense. The just tension without stretch.
So I have to use the 20-pound dumbbells to get peak growth because of the stretch. Okay, listen. This is just my take, boys, obviously. Here's how I see it, and personally, I think I'm right here. Why not? Why is everything black and white? Why the frick does everything have to be one or the other? Again, the answer's somewhere in the middle. Why don't we grab the, he's like the 40s versus the 80s. How about we start with the 10s, okay? And get the stretch, you get the contraction, right? And then we go to the 20s, same, perfect, same. 30s, same, perfect. 40s, because that's what he's saying, is the stretch. Now we go to the 50s, okay? You get a little bit more sway in there. Now we go to the 60s, okay? A little bit more sway. Now we go to the 70s, sway. 80s, sway, okay? Now, here's how I see it. I've done so many cheat curls in my time, boys, and he's talking about the stretch is the best for the peak growth. I don't know if this, listen, again, no disrespect. All the respect in the world, and I'd love to collab with him at some point if that's possible. I would love to. I think they're two brilliant genius minds to really, freaking shoot magic at each other, you know what I mean? But I've done 150-pound, crappy, terrible form cheat curls, like, say with dumbbells, like, where you don't get any squeeze with that, which is swinging. The stretch with that weight, boys, because you're using momentum basically here, and you freaking stretch like up the wazoo. Now, if we're talking about safety, then yeah, it's probably a lot less safe to stretch with 150 pounds. But my biceps were never in my life as sore using the lighter weight.
That's actually a good point. Even though it might not be quote unquote as safe, there are some movements that I think do lend themselves to a little bit of cheating. Like think about a row. A row is hardest as you kind of get to that contracted position, that end range. So sometimes using a little bit of momentum and a little bit of cheat can actually help you to use a heavier load. So then you're getting more of a weighted stretch, which is probably pretty important for muscle growth. So I think that's a fair point that he makes there.
Weights, this versus when I was hoisting those freaking cheat reps, like, oh my God, that stretch is intense. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. Like, would I ever do that again? No, I'm older. I've learned my lesson with that extreme. That's essentially ego lifting. And I've done it all, boys. Like I said, the pulling tempo, the ego, the strict bodybuilding, I've done it all. That's why I feel like I can really kind of be an authority on this. So why not do the 40s with the peak form, keep working up, use the sway, go up to the 80s or so, and then when you're using that bigger weight, yeah, maybe even, let's say, the biceps aren't freaking getting the peak tension the same as they are with the 40s, but your freaking grip is going to be working, just pure cojones to grip and rip the big boys, forearms at the wazoo, once you start using that little bit of this.
See, the funny thing is that when Mike said the term stimulus to fatigue ratio, he was like, oh, this is freaking nerd talk. But kind of what he's describing is that stimulus to fatigue ratio. Like he's saying, okay, maybe the stimulus is really great from using like the really heavy dumbbells, but it doesn't feel great on like the joints and the tendons and the ligaments, so you can't recover from it. And then maybe on the like using 10s or 20s is so light that, okay, sure, you can handle it, but it's not going to produce as much as a stimulus. So let's use kind of that in-between weight where you get a good stretch, but you can still control it, and it doesn't really mess up your joint structures. And that's literally what the stimulus to fatigue ratio is kind of optimizing those trade-offs. So it's funny that he's kind of talking about that, even though he kind of just called it nerd talk earlier in the video.
The swing, your delts, your traps, all that stuff is just hoisting heavy iron, heavy hot iron. It feels incredible, right? And then, because your CNS is freaking primed from hoisting the big weights, you drop that down, I guarantee you can grab those 50s and move that with the same effort that you can do the 40s, okay? That's what we don't.
And then what he's talking about here is kind of that idea of post-activation potentiation, which is like if you do a heavy set and then you go to a lighter set, the lighter set feels lighter than what it would have if you had just gone to that weight immediately. So for example, if maybe you're doing like a set of 315 on squats, and you know that 315 is going to be your working weight. Maybe you do 3 sets of 8 to 10 for your working weight. Doing a warm-up set with a single at maybe 335 would make those 315 working sets might potentially actually feel easier, and you may perform better than if you had just done your last warm-up set at like 305 or 315 or whatever. So I feel like that's actually an interesting point that he's made there.
That never seems to be a part of the argument here. There's really something to be said about priming up the CNS, where it's always like, you gotta use lightweight, and kind of pinch it, pause, and explode in 3, 2, 1, pause, up, okay? You're never gonna freaking keep the nervous system the same way. Horse, cock, and giant weights, you know what I'm saying? Feel the weight that way, and then you drop that down to lightweight, and it's like, oh my God, I can do this for double the reps, you know what I'm saying? So it's not one or the other. Why not just do both? So that video, while you may have a point that the peak contraction is the same as using leverage to get from here to here, using lightweight to go from here to here, how much extra time does it take just to do both? 40s, bump up. 60s, bump up. 80s, drop that down. Now I'm at the 50s with just as good form as the 40s. You guys get what I'm saying?
Beautiful. Shit, here we go. Last one. You just feel it. Nope. Whoa. Oh, man, that's it. It's very humbling. But just going to show you don't need that much.
Totally. Humbling. You don't need that much. Frick, guys. Yeah, you can have 0 pounds for the lateral. You can do this with 0 pounds if you're holding it for long enough, or 2 pounds and moving it a snail's pace. Oh my God, that's hard. But again, I think we're missing out on the factor. Like, how much strengthening of the nervous system, feeling the heavy weights. Like, I don't know how many total reps I think they cut when he's doing that, but say he did like, I don't know, maybe say he did 5 or 8 reps, super slow reps. Oh my God. Like, does that make it better than putting more weight, like putting the same weight on there and just bang it out like a set of 30? Like, fellas, my chest is killing me today. And you know what I did? I did a set of 225, as many reps as possible.
Also, one point I forgot to make earlier when he was talking about there's nothing like, hitting PRs in the gym and seeing how many reps I can get on this and trying to add 5 pounds from last week. You can still do that within the context of the system of RP. And that's something that they preach is progressions every single week. So that doesn't mean that you can't go into the gym excited about trying to hit PRs. That's something that I do every single week. It doesn't, being kind of more evidence-based or using kind of this more optimized quote unquote technique doesn't preclude you from giving a full effort and from trying to go for those +5s or those +10s. I just wanted to add that.
I was banging like this, okay? This form. And then I know if I upload it, people are going to say, half reps, not a single rep. It's like, bro, anyone that's really jacked, really strong, has an awesome bench press, that's literally how they rep it, okay? I've never seen a jacked people go, oh, lock up. Oh, lock up. You know what I'm saying? It's always put horse cock the weight, throw the weight out, boom, boom, boom. Just pump as many as you can, okay? I know Larry Wheels did like what?
I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. There's a lot of different people who have gone jacked a lot of different ways. And sure, there will be big people who can just horse around weight, like he's saying. But there's also people who have got just look at Mike and Jared. That's the way that they've trained, and they've clearly gotten big off of it. So I wouldn't say that everyone who's bigger is like that. It might just be kind of the circles that Eric runs in.
70 or 80 reps or something. I think it's 70 reps with 225. That's how he presses it, right? There's another dude, I can't find his name, I'll make an upload about it, but guys have like a 675 pound bench or something. Same thing. 225 for 80 reps or something like that. Done in the same fashion, right? That's how all these freaking super stacked and jacked guys do it. Now, who knows, what's more optimal doing? For Alex to do, 10 reps.
I mean, the thing is, did they get their bench that big from doing it like that? Or is it now that they're so big, they can just crank out a bunch of reps? I feel like that's something to consider as well.
Super slow, super humbling, or to do that on and go freaking 30, pump it out, He's explosively trying to get as many reps as possible, okay? I'll tell you what's going to make him feel more confident that he's a jacked stud horse. They say, I did 225 for 30, right? Put 315 on it, guarantee I can hit for 15, right? As opposed to, I can only do 225 for 10. At the end of the day,
see, there's nothing wrong with this, but I feel like a lot of Eric's passion for lifting comes from the emotional feeling that he gets from moving weight in a certain way. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to that, who are like him. And when they try to do it this other way, they're like, it's just so boring that they don't enjoy it. And then they don't go to the gym and therefore they don't get results. So I can totally understand the point that he's trying to make. I just think it's important to say that not everybody's like that.
It's also a freaking mindset, boys, right? If you believe that you're strong, you're probably going to have a better chance of being strong. And say, well, I can only do 135 for 5 reps, but my negative is ultra controlled, and I pause. I don't ego lift like other people at the gym that are doing no pause and not controlling their eccentric. You get what I'm saying? Frick.
And when you do
move on. What do we got here?
hell yeah. So chest up.
Look at that.
Again, I think you can do both. I think that you can think that you're strong, and then you can also have a slow eccentric. I don't think those two are mutually exclusive.
You do this, totally. Sure. But the pecs open up if you do this, and they get a big stretch. So you start
You know what I find funny about this?
straight line to your face that goes all the way through the outside of your shoulders. Start here, open up, elbows out, reach big at the bottom to get really between your own hip.
Paralysis by analysis. Grab the dumbbells and trust it.
Right, get that little pause for a second, and then curve back up. Big reach, curve back.
The amount of times I watch this, like, oh my god, oh my god.
Come on here, right? There should be a
I think he has a bit of a point here. I think that oftentimes you don't have to think so hard about it. You can kind of just do what feels good. I guess some people just need a little bit more instruction, which is why Mike is doing that. And he's probably seen so many people train kind of like brainlessly that he feels like he wants to add a little bit more instruction there. For myself, though, I don't tend to like really overthink these things. I kind of just go based off of feel and how does the muscle feel when I'm pressing something. So it's kind of in between an analytical and just kind of an intuitive approach.
Okay. Just make sure you're motion. Yeah, down shoulders, especially. Like, okay, yeah. Let me see what feels good. Because when you want to change things, well, how is that? And then press. You want
to see something?
Okay.
Look at this contraction right here.
When you want
Look at this contraction right here. It's a jump cut. I guess they don't want to show that. You're talking about cutting out ego lifting. This thing right here is the ultimate freaking assister of ego, right? You probably shouldn't be pressing dumbbells that you can't. You know what I do? I farmers walk them from the rack. I put them on my knees and I kick them up. If you can't kick them up and get them in a position, and you need people to hand you the dumbbells, or you need a freaking machine like this to hand you the dumbbells, that's freaking ego lifting, in my opinion. Okay?
Eric's a funny guy. I'll give him that.
That's part of the process of using dumbbells. You got to freaking handle the load. You need a machine to help you handle the load. So where's the talk on that, you know? Look at these
Oh, yeah. One after another.
And I think Mike and Jared's kind of cheeky response to that would just be like, oh, well, you're wasting energy getting the dumbbells over from the rack to the bench and kicking them up. And that's energy that could be spent getting a better performance. To which Eric would probably say that's nerd talk again.
Just like that. Just up. Yes.
Oh my god.
That's up.
And again, you got a big arch in your back. Like, what about the arch in your back?
Huge chest, the biggest one. Push up and in.
Huge chest, the biggest. What are these cues? Huge chest. 65-pound dumbbells. Okay. I don't mean Alex are the same size, but he's doing an incline bench. 65-pound dumbbells. Oh, huge chest. Push it up. Oh my god. Okay. I would freaking see. So let's say because I'm heavier than him, it's like me doing 95s or something like that with this form. What am I going to benefit more from? 95-pound dumbbells or 150s? You know what I'm saying? I'll tell you what's a lot more fun. What's going to keep me wanting to come back to the gym? Using the 150s. Either grabbing.
Again, great point by Eric in that what really matters is what you're going to do in terms of what you're going to enjoy with your training. Maybe the results that you get from pressing the 95s with super strict form and technique is the same that you get from the 150s with looser technique. But if that's what Eric enjoys doing, then that's great. And I think that's the message that he's trying to preach. Now, okay, maybe in terms of, again, lifting for a long time, if you want to be lifting for a while, maybe there's an advantage to using that lighter weight and making it harder. Just going to throw that out there. I know for myself, that's the way that I prefer to lift. I don't really care about the weight that I lift, but some people do, and that's totally fine. I have nothing against that.
These tiny freaking, these tiny dumbbells, like that's fun stuff. Fellas, lifting, it's the long game. And I get like protecting the joints and all that, but like, As long as you kind of know, like, hey, maybe I should half rep it. I should have spotters handing me dumbbells I can't handle on my own, like that kind of stuff. I think you won't get hurt. Like, this is just, I mean, I guarantee so many noobs are going to try this. Oh, man, like, you don't need to use heavy weight. You just got to do, this is, oh, huge chest. Guys, just pick up some freaking weights and press them and strive to get the big boys up. Striving to get the big boys is going to make you more jacked and strong than anything.
Progressive overload. That's what he's talking about here. You need to get stronger over time. Absolutely true. And you need to apply a lot of effort. I think that's something he's saying as well. You can't use this, you can't use lighter weight for the sake of using lighter weight and using that to escape having to lift heavier. That's a really good point that he's making.
This shit, you're going to get sick of doing this after a year tops, right? When I was in the temple training, I did it for a year.
Maybe. Not the case for myself.
My little journal logbook, and I was like, this is stupid. I hate doing it. I did not look forward to lifting doing that. Oh, I'm going to go do my... You know what I'm saying? But it's not fun.
And as a counterpoint, I didn't enjoy lifting when I had joint pain all the time from lifting heavier with worse form. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
You got to enjoy what you do. If you enjoy it, like for me, for instance, fellas, I can't remember.
Also, I enjoy lifting partially because of the results that I get. And if I didn't get results from lifting, I would not enjoy it as much. And the way that I lift gets me results, if that makes sense.
That's something I did. I didn't take a day off in forever. Only unless I was forced to. Like, I'm literally traveling across the world and I don't have time to go to the gym. But even then, I'll find a way to go to the hotel gym and
Same.
getting something up. Because I love doing it because it's fun, it's enjoyable to freaking want to dominate the big boys and get jacked and stacked and succulent dense. This is just good luck following this for a long period of time.
Shit.
That was so hard. Well, yeah, obviously. Like, how boring was that set?
It's such a different school, right? Oh my god. So you like arching on the incline? Sure. Brilliant. Yeah. That's why you get very degrees, right? Exactly. Arch really fucking hard on the high incline and put the reach into the stretch is so much better.
Oh, there's the app.
Chest is pretty fried by this point. You got bench, you got dumbbell press. Dips really done below and slow. Of course, with a nice pause at the bottom for a big stretch under tension.
Yeah, so you say, oh, chest is fried. Like, your chest, listen, I promise you, even if you just do one exercise, flat bench, okay? You work up to a heavy single or something with, not eagle lifting, not like partial or whatever, but unrack it, you grind that up, and then you drop down, you do an AMRAP. As many as you can, one exercise is all you need. I promise you that. Doing this horse crap, oh, man, do I feel that. Again, what's more fun? It's got to be enjoyable.
I'll get to the second point the second part of what he's saying right there. But in terms of doing a flat barbell bench press and being all that you need, it's definitely a good exercise, but I don't know if you could say that it's all that you need.
If it's not enjoyable, you're not going to be consistent with it. If you're not consistent with it, that's the key, just consistency.
And
he's 100% correct about that.
Alex has done dips with, I believe, 4 plates hanging before, roughly this body weight. And this is going to be a big difference because we're asking him to go slow on the way down. We're asking him to get a deeper stretch than usual. We're doing that for 2 exercises, 6 working sets, like difficult chest work. And he might actually only have to use like 45 or something like that.
So you want to be using 4 plates to 1 plate. And again, you want it slow in the stimulus, and it's better for the protection of the joints and the intensity of the muscle doesn't know the weight. Like, if that shit muscle doesn't know the weight, I don't know, the brain does, the freaking nervous system does. I'll tell you right now, using 1 plate, like, just everything. Like, when you use, it's no different. 1 plate. If you're using 4 plates, now you're freaking, you know what I mean? Like, your traps, your back, you're gripping the shit out of your forearms, your core, everything's just fighting like a mother. Ah! 1 plate, just like, okay. Oh. You know what I mean? This is like long, there's like slow, steady cardio versus high intensity freaking sprinting.
I think it's just a difference in personality, really, is what it is. Everyone's personality lends them to enjoy a different style of training, and that's totally fine.
You know what I'm saying? It's like the difference. You can't compare the two. You cannot compare the two.
Look forward. No.
Okay, and this is just like high school wrestling practice. You know what I mean? Just hold a push up, go side to side, right? Pulse it, hold it. Like, yeah, it's hard. Like, guys, again, I'm not knocking any of this. I'm just giving my 2 cents with it. And people say, you try it. Yeah, I guarantee it's hard. That's not the point. The point is who's going to make better progress over the long run. The guy doing a hour-long push-up because it's the same stimulus as horse cocking a 405-pound bench for 1 rep. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think that, like, I love the fact that it's like about the optimization of muscle recruitment and like this is the perfect form. Like, that's good. A beginner should learn how to like engage their back when they're bench pressing. Like, that's important stuff. But making every rep so slow, I guarantee there's not a single super jack like world record power lifter, strongman, any of those kinds of like legit strength that trains this way. You know what I mean? Because
so I think we're starting to see a little bit of Eric's bias towards strength here, and like Renaissance Periodization has some strength focused content, but it's really purely about muscle growth. And I think that's kind of where there's a dichotomy here. Eric obviously loves training and training to get strong, and he's jacked because of the way that he trains, but I don't think he necessarily trains just purely to get jacked. Like, he also trains because he enjoys being strong, which I think is a clear kind of like difference here between maybe somebody who's a pure bodybuilder and him who only cares about their muscles and how big they are and doesn't necessarily care about how strong they are.
it's not going to get you strong. You're not going to get strong doing this. I guarantee you. Yeah, your muscles might like get just as big as they were if you're using heavy weight. They might, but you're not going to get strong. And I think that's the key too. It's like, what do we train for? People say, I just want to look like I can bench 500. I don't care if I actually can. That's because you're freaking weak. I guarantee it. You wish you could bench 500, right? I guarantee it.
That's the thing. I don't agree with this. I don't think everybody does care. I think some people want to just look like they can, and like, yeah, maybe they think it would be cool, but ultimately they don't really care. They're just in it to be a bodybuilder, to get bigger muscles because they think that looks cool. They literally don't care about their numbers. I know a lot of people who are like that on the online natural fitness community. So I don't necessarily agree with that.
If people could lift heavy, they would, because lifting heavy is fun. It's like a sign of like dominance. Like that's what we train for, is to be strong. Strength is like core, like grip strength, for instance.
Okay, that's what we train for. It's to be strong. That's what Eric may train for, but that's not what necessarily everyone will train for. So again, something to keep in mind. Why do you train? That's what's important.
Correlated with like health, longevity, functionality, like athleticism and stuff. Like you have to be explosive. You have to be strong. I mean, how many athletes do you think are watching this? Like, oh man, yeah, I don't want to get injured on the field. This is how I should train. But they're not going to have that freaking pop.
Again, Renaissance periodization, not for athletes. It's for people who want to get bigger muscles. That's primarily what their content is geared towards. Body composition change.
You know what I mean? That explosiveness if they train like this. I guarantee it.
How unimpressive it looks emotionally. People expect like a fucking war, and you're just like,
Yeah, how unimpressive it looks. If you feel like you're doing stuff that's unimpressive and everyone's looking at you like, this guy's weak, he's weak. It's just like, it's just, listen, man, like you gotta want to do it. If you're gonna go to the gym every day and do unimpressive stuff, like, I feel like that's part of the fun of going to the gym. It's like, yeah, I'm getting bigger, I'm getting stronger.
Okay, I think fair enough point. However, when Mike or Jared or any of these guys are going to the gym, clearly what they're doing is impressive. Like Mike squatting like 405 for reps, like super deep. Anyone would say that's impressive. So I think maybe what Eric is saying is that a lot of beginners are going to see this and really detach from the weight. And so they're not going to push themselves to progress. But as long as you're progressing, I think that's what's important. And I don't really care about looking impressive in the gym, although I am like decently strong compared to a lot of people at my gym, and I get comments about that, even though my technique is really great. So I don't think there's a necessarily like there has to be a dichotomy. You can have really great technique and you can give a really great amount of effort and lift heavy weight. Like you can have all three of them. I don't think you can only have a couple of them.
Like as I get stronger, people are like, holy fuck, look at that horse guy. That's the fun of going to the gym. You know what I mean? You want to go to the gym and fail at one push-up because you're like, people are watching like, oh, this guy's jacked. Like, let's see what he does. And it's like one push-up. Like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? Like,
overall, this is a body built by the old school basics. The flat ball bench press, incline double bench press. We did literally stuff that I always do. We did it today, but with an extra emphasis on getting more or less weight.
so he's saying he's built his chest by the basics, barbells and dumbbells. Okay, yeah, dips and push-ups and all that. Did he build it with this slow crap though? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. Would he have been as committed to the game if he was doing? I guarantee you, Alex is not going to continue training this way. Guarantee you, right? Because again, I've lived it. I've done it. It's like, oh man, you don't need much weight. That's really hard, but you're not going to stick with it because it's freaking boring, right? Lifting, the fun in lifting is the passion to hoist heavy iron, right? To freaking feel like you're just
I think Alex's training approach is kind of a mixture of like RP stuff, but then also old school and kind of newer school, higher intensity stuff, like I was saying with the Jordan Peters, Dorian Yates kind of style of training. So I think Alex actually uses a blend of a lot of this stuff.
Climbing the totem pole of dominance. You're getting big, you're getting jacked, you're getting strong, right? Fellas, this is not it. I'm telling you. So that's the gist of it, guys. Obviously, much love to Dr. Mike. I guarantee you he doesn't even train this slow. This is like what you do with, listen, I was a personal trainer. Okay? I was a strength coach many moons ago.
I think a lot of the concepts that Mike's talking about, he applies in his training, but maybe this is not exactly how he would train. I'd agree with that. So I think that's most of the video. I don't know if there's too much else after this. I think Eric makes a lot of good, fair points. I think he makes some points that I also disagree with. So I hope that you enjoyed kind of this analysis and my thoughts on the matter. If you have any thoughts or questions or things that you want to follow up on, please let me know. If you kind of enjoy this reaction style of content, I'd also love to hear that from you. And I'll see you guys in the next one.